Hey, welcome to Agency Intelligence, where I give you real agents inside real agencies, giving you the real agency intelligence and not the artificial that they try to make you believe out there. This is Cass, and I'm back with you. I know you're excited. It's the reason why whatever you were going to listen to today, you saw that this podcast was on the assignment. Jason Cass and Scott Howell. Scott, how are you doing, brother?
Man, I am the best, Jason Cass. I hope you are today. I am fired up about being on your podcast.
Yeah. This is way overdue. Way overdue. Absolutely. Thank you very much for coming back down. Anytime I can get anybody from Alabama, that's always a good time. And I mean that. Bradley Flowers, but also I got another buddy. You probably know him there, Boyd McGee. I don't know if you know Boyd McGee, but Boyd McGee's out of Talladega Insurance Agency. He is actually, they have record that he might be the second oldest agency in America. And he has a dollar bill, a Confederate dollar bill, on his wall. His agency opened in 1862.
Wow.
And it is a Confederate dollar signed by Robert E. Lee, who was insured with his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather who started the business. So it was kind of crazy. Yeah, right?
That is an old, that may be, you may be right. That may be one of the oldest or the oldest in the country.
There's one up in, I think, like Maine or New Hampshire or some shit like that. That's way up there, right?
Yeah.
It's like Plymouth Rock.
Right. Well, before we get into that, let me say this.
Okay.
When I consider you the OG of insurance podcasting, when Bradley and I were talking about doing a podcast, at that time you were pretty much the only game in town as far as insurance podcasts. And I can remember going and listening to a few of your podcasts, just trying to get a flavor for what is this going to be like, because I'd never podcasted before. But, it was... You and I didn't know each other at all. I remember running into you in 2018 down in New Orleans in a hotel lobby.
Yeah, getting ready to get on the elevator.
Yeah, and I spoke to you very briefly, and you were like, "Hey man, it's a pleasure to meet you, but I got to get somewhere like right now." I think you were going to some meeting, something you were doing. But
for Neon. For Neon.
That's right. That's what it was. That's exactly right. So it was an honor to get to meet you down there, because in my mind, you were the first out of the gate, man. You were the one that broke the door down and decided, and I know we probably don't want to get into all this today, but at that, you were talking about on your podcast, you were doing technology. You had that breakout podcast where you talked about the big eye one time, and it was like, I got 4 or 5 messages within an hour. You got to go hear this. You got to go hear this. But I just appreciate you having me on your show. And I tell you what I really appreciate about you, Jason, is a lot of people don't have the maturity or the self-awareness or the just whatever it is to not be a little pissed off when guys like Bradley and I start a podcast. I could see some people being, having a case of the red ass. You have always embraced us. You have always been positive and very complimentary and very supportive of us and what we were doing. And I just can't tell you enough how much I appreciate you being that way, rather than, throwing off on us and this is a bunch of rednecks from Alabama and why are y'all even doing this? You've just always been very supportive of us, and I really, really appreciate that more than you know.
I greatly appreciate that. I really do. I heard Bradley tell me something one day similar, and thank you very much. I said it from the very beginning. My goal was that we had 10 podcasts. That was like in 2013, 2014. Because if we're using a podcast to create forward momentum with other people's voices, like if I can amplify that 10 times. So thank you for coming along. That's no doubt. And you guys have a different flavor for how you do things. And I mean, seriously, I think our audiences overlap, but I don't think by as much as a lot of people think.
No.
There's a lot of people I talk to that have no idea who you are, and then I talk to people who listen to you, and they're like, who the hell's Agency Intelligence? And I got to be honest with you. this is just egotistical, but I'm like, how in the hell are you in this industry listening to podcasts and you don't know who one of us is? It doesn't make any sense. But anyway,
Right.
I mean, I don't say that with a big ego. I just say that I think that Bradley talks about it about a lot. It's not about downloads; it's about impact, and that's important to know. I think it's a ratio, right? If every 100 people that listen, I create impact on 3 of them. Well, how do we create more impact? Let's get more downloads or more people. But thank you very much for what you guys do as well. And I truly enjoy listening to you guys. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. That's not what I do. Do you listen to a lot of podcasts?
I listen to sporadically. I will listen to at least one insurance podcast a week. And that is usually, I try to rotate them from the different people in our sphere. So last week I listened to a podcast from Ryan Hanley.
With Heath Sharon?
No, it was the one with the guys that are starting Obi, the habitational stuff that they're doing.
Yeah. Yep.
Yesterday I listened to a Mike Stromso UPP podcast that he just came out with about hiring good people.
Okay.
Next week it'll probably be you. And so what I try to do is keep one podcast in rotation a week. I think it's good to hear what everybody's doing, and no matter which podcast you listen to, no matter who the host of the podcast is, as long as it's within the insurance sphere, okay, you can always learn. I always learn something from every single podcast that I listen to. Maybe it's only 1 or 2 little things that I pick up that I write down, jot down, keep it in the back of my mind, think about it for a while, and then either implement it in our agency, or maybe it's a new technology that I have my agency manager go look at and say, is this something that can help us? Is this a technology that could benefit our agency in some way? And so that's just what I do.
I think they're meant to mold. Podcasts are meant to mold just like books. I was talking with somebody, and this is funny, but this is how the person is. He is kind of new to reading over the last 2 to 3 years, right? He's in his mid-30s, and it seems like all this stuff he reads, he's really excited about it, and he talks to me about it a lot, and I'm like, dude, I've been reading since I was like 15. My mom ingrained it on me. I've read a lot of books. This kind of stuff makes sense. And then whenever I would talk about a book that I had read with him, he would say to me, so why aren't you doing it? Mm-hmm. And then we would talk about another book, and he would say, so why aren't you doing it? And after a while, I had to say to him, listen, if I did everything every book said, I would be all over the place. But it's molding me. It's shaping my brain. It's creating those little freaking tubes or tunnels, they say, that work through our head. That's what it is. And it's the mixture of the 1,000 that brings me. And I think podcasting's the same way. We're not trying, as you said, I like what you said, you're taking a couple things, you're listening, it's molding, you're taking some back to your staff. So I think that's good. But let's get on with this.
Go ahead.
Are you an iPhone or are you a Droid user?
Droid.
Holy shit, I did not know that.
Bradley likes to give me a ration of shit about that at least once a month, that I'm a Droid guy. But
that son of a bitch gives me all that shit for being a Droid guy, and his best freaking co-host is a Droid guy.
Listen.
Now I feel like we have a connection.
Dude, listen, here's the thing. He'll give me shit about being a Droid guy, and then inevitably some Apple thing that he's using will break down, and I'm like, Bradley, you wouldn't have that problem if you just had a Droid, but here's the thing about life. Okay. Yeah. As the older you get, you realize, people fall in one of 2 camps. They're either an Apple person or a Droid person. It's a lot like politics. You're not going to change their mind. I have always said this. The 3 or 4 most committed, loyal customer bases in America. I'm gonna call them out by name, and I'm gonna rank them. Now, the number 1 most loyal customer base in America are people who use crystal meth. People who use crystal meth love crystal meth.
They do.
They freaking love it. I mean, if somebody uses crystal meth, you are not going to get them to change their mind that crystal meth is not good. They love crystal meth.
They're going to convince you that.
Right. Number 2, iPhone users. If you are an iPhone user, there is no chance in hell that anyone will ever convince you that trying to talk them into doing something else is impossible. That will not happen. Number 3, USAA clients. Dear Heavenly God, if you ever cold call someone and the words come out of their mouth that they are a USAA client, just hang the damn phone up.
Get off.
And I'm going to tell you something else about USAA, and I commend them for this because when I figured this out, I was like, that is the most ingenious thing I've ever heard of. So in their CRM system, once they sign you up as a USAA customer, if you were former military, in their system, it has your last rank that you were when you were in the military. So let's say Jason Cass was a staff sergeant in the Army. When you call USAA to make a payment or you have a question or you got a claim, they address you as Staff Sergeant Cass.
That's pretty.
And I'm like, dude, that is the most brilliant freaking thing. People will not change simply because they like calling USAA and hearing, Staff Sergeant Cass, how are you doing today, sir? And they're like, you damn right, I'm Staff Sergeant Cass. But those are the 3 most loyal people in the world. Crystal meth users, iPhone users, and USAA members.
And here's the thing. Psychiatrists and drug programs can get people off of meth. It's very hard, but it can happen.
Correct.
And then you could even say that there have been agents that have convinced people to leave USAA for maybe whatever reason it can be. But you can't get those iPhone users.
Dude.
There's nothing that fixes it.
Never. Never.
Yeah, I think maybe it's misery loves company. You think that's a little bit of a mixture?
And here's the other damn thing about it that I just can't figure out. Every time they come out with a new iPhone, they've got something that you can no longer use with the iPhone stuff you had. So you got to buy all new stuff. And it's
you see, they came out with widgets a year ago.
Yeah.
They came out with those in 2011.
Right. Yeah, and hey, that plug you've been using for 6 years? You're not using that no more. You got to. And by the way, when you buy that new iPhone, it ain't gonna come with a plug, so you got to buy that extra.
I know.
So it's just crazy. I have never seen anything like it in my entire life. It's
crazy.
Unbelievable.
Droid's changed their thing, I think, one time, and it was to the new one that they have, and they had to do it because it's a battery that needs more juice, right? That USB-C or whatever. So anyway, straight geeking out on you, loyal listeners, but I know you're enjoying this. What's the last app you downloaded, Scott?
I believe let me look on my phone because I want to make sure I'm telling you the right thing. You're going to love this because I'm sure you've seen this on social media, but Viola,
yeah.
Voila, and my wife comes in the other day and she goes, "You got to download this app." And I was like, "Okay." And I was like, "What is it?" And she's like, "Well, it takes pictures and it turns your picture into a cartoon picture." And you're seeing these all over the internet now, Facebook, Instagram, where people take this picture of themselves. But it's Voila, and it's Viola or something. I don't, however you pronounce that. But that's the last app that I downloaded last weekend. And then, of course, I had to spend an hour playing with it to take all the pictures of everybody I know and turn them into cartoon characters. So that was pretty cool.
I bet you that was pretty cool. That is pretty cool.
I
like that.
Yeah, that's the last app I downloaded.
Do you love to win or do you hate to lose?
Love to win. I would say love to win.
Me too.
Yeah, Me too. I don't think much about losing. I just keep going every day, putting one foot in front of the other. I've always said that insurance is a lot like working out. I don't like to work out. I hate to work out. But every morning I have a little home gym. It's not much, but I have a home gym at my house. and I drudge out to that gym and I go work out for 30, 45 minutes a day to keep me from beating the hell out of somebody, and hit the heavy bag and work out for 30. Hate it, don't want to do it, wish I didn't have to do it. And I feel like insurance is a little bit that same way, and just business in general is just showing up. Showing up and doing all the shit that you don't want to do every single day. I think that's probably more than half of making it in this industry is just showing up.
Consistently do the shit that other people don't want to do,
Yep.
and you'll make money. You know what
That's
I mean?
right.
That's well said there. That's well said. The other one, luck or skill, what's got you to where you are if you had to choose one, buddy?
A little bit of both. I think anybody that's successful, depending on what your circumstances were when you got in the industry, I think that determines it a little bit. But I think I've thought a lot about this actually. Anybody who thinks that they're just going to jump into the insurance industry as a 23-year-old and just crush it the first 2 or 3 years, you're wrong. That's not going to happen. And it takes a lot of time in service, to use a military term, of just figuring this whole thing out, and then partnering and getting mentors in the industry, the guys like yourself and David Carruthers and Chris Paradiso. You can shorten that time frame that it takes to be uber successful in insurance. Right. If you will get with these guys that have already done it and are in the 20-year club or the 15-year club. So this is an Andy Frisella thing. I was listening to one of his podcasts, I guess 6-7 months ago, and he talked about in every industry there's the 1-year club, the 5-year club, the 10-year club, the 15-year club, and the 20-year club, and everybody's trying to get to the 20-year club. And you can't start year 1, 2, or 3 and be in the 20-year club. That's just not going to happen. And so it takes 5 years in this business. If you make it 5 years in the insurance business, more than likely you're going to be successful in it. But you want to get to that 20-year club, and I think the only way to get there is to have some great mentors and coaches that kind of guide you around all those pitfalls and mistakes that they made at their 10-year period and their 5-year period, and all the transitions that you have to make in this industry. Because when you start, Jason, you remember this, right? Day one in insurance. Day one in insurance. Sell insurance like your freaking hair's on fire.
That's right.
And you have to keep that mindset for 5 years to grow that business up to the point to where you can live the lifestyle that you want to live. But then you get to this point that Scott's at right now, and I'm talking about myself in the third person, where you're 11 years in, you've got 5 agencies, 12 employees, and the things that I did year 1 through 5, which was tell all my people, if you will just go sell insurance like your hair's on fire, everything else will take care of itself.
True.
You have to you kind of have to turn your fire and think about human resources more and managing people. And I don't quote nearly as much as I used to, even though I still do a little bit of that, but not very often. Vision statements. I've been talking a lot about this on my podcast. I mean, there's nothing I hate more than formal job descriptions, vision statements, all the stuff that I kind of think of in the same terms as I think of like corporate America, and so because that's the last thing I want is to be an agency that's like working for a corporation or working for corporate America. But at the same time, you have to have accountability, following up and make sure that your people are following the processes and procedures that you put in place, putting processes and procedures in place. We're in the middle of that right now. So it just, things change, but I do think there is a little bit of luck that comes into this as well sometimes. Like, maybe getting a carrier that maybe helps you find a niche that you just end up running away with, or maybe an agency comes available that you buy that turns out to just be a rainmaker for, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that can happen.
Yeah. I was third, fourth, fifth weekend. I'm coming back from getting my butt kicked. I'm in commercial. I'm like 2 to 3 weeks in a commercial. I'm about 6, 7 months into insurance. Um, and I'm getting my butt kicked, and I stop. My wife is out of town. I stop at this local establishment and have a brew. Probably an hour away from town. That's not something I normally do, which is part of the story. I go up to the bar. I decide to have a Bud Light because I'm in Bush country, or Anheuser-Busch country, and the gentleman sitting next to me ends up being Clifford Matthews. Him and I sit there and talk for about 2 hours. And he owns Matthews and Sons Dirt Contractors. He sets me up with his wife for the appointment. He sets me up. I go meet with him, or meet with her. And the first thing she says to me is, she says, "Jason, do you do railroad insurance? Because we do a lot of dirt work, but we do it for the railroad." I'm like, well, I can't imagine that can't be that hard, And my point is that I ended up. She said to me, the reason is most time when we tell agents that we do railroad insurance, they just hang up on us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that told me something. I was like, well, that's the kind of client I want, right? And then, long story short, she gave me all her policies. All of them were real policies, except for the umbrella was fake. And what happened to be, it was a copy. And so I go back to call Hartford to see if the thing matches. Hartford ended up looking at the policy number. This agent had taken and typed in this fake stuff on Hartford for railroad liability, and then had made copies and given it to the client. The point is that I was out an hour, 2 hours away from home, working it, trying to do everything I could. Didn't know my ass from the hole in the ground. Stopped at a local establishment. Could have been a Dollar General store. Could have been a brewski store like this one was. Had to take that chance. Had to listen to her say to me, hey, this and that, and I don't write railroad contractors, and go through all this thing. And ended up being about an $80,000 premium account that then I went and worked with them. And what I mean by that is I called Clifford and I said, Clifford, I want to go out on the railroad. And I want to, when you guys are doing a job, and I want to work with you, So I went out there one day, worked for about 4 or 5 hours. My point of that story is I've thought a lot about a luck or skill. And I think, there was a lot of luck that came in me stopping by that place. But I had to be out there, Scott, right? I had to be out there working it. I made a ton of phone calls to get that appointment that was over there, right? So I was working that skill. But then I worked the skill on the back end to say, how can I get more involved so that this guy knows that I'm serious about this? That was one of my first niches. And then the work comp market absolutely dried up in 2009, 2010. I learned something about niches. Having one is not always a very good thing. So, so anyways, let's keep on going on. I just love this because there really is if you have skill and you work your ass off, that luck will come. It really truly does.
That's exactly right.
Take me back to high school. Take me back to diapers, college. Bring me forward. I think a lot of people who listen, obviously, to your podcast know your history. But in 2 to 3 minutes, give us the wrap up, and I'll ask some questions about it.
Real life Forrest Gump. Graduated high school in May of 1990. Got a junior college basketball scholarship. Played JUCO ball for 2 years. Got fired from my first job I had the summer of my freshman year at a feed and seed store because I said something under my breath about the owner's mom who had chewed my ass about something, and somebody told on me, and the owner comes in there and fires me, tells me that I'm never going to be successful in life and I'm just a piece of shit and blah, blah, blah. That was fun.
How wrong
went to Birmingham Southern and was not going to play basketball. Joined a fraternity, was pledge class president of my fraternity, Theta Chi, and they had this walk-on tryout thing that they did. And the day before it, I had actually turned my ankle over really bad. Like it was black, almost looked broken. So I couldn't do the walk-on tryout thing. And so my basketball career was over. I was done. And I was loading my car up to go home for Thanksgiving. And one of the basketball players at Birmingham Southern, he was from Nashville. He actually played his freshman year in football at Notre Dame. He was from Brentwood Academy, and he signed with Notre Dame in football, but he played there a year and then didn't pan out. So he came to Birmingham Southern to play basketball. We had a lot of Division I transfers to Birmingham Southern, some of whom I think 3 or 4 of the guys we had played major college football at one time or another, just didn't like it.
Gotcha.
He comes up to me at my car and he goes, "Hey, Coach Rebold wants to see you down in the office." Now, at that time, Birmingham Southern in basketball was a big fish in a little pond. We were always ranked number 1, 2, or 3 in the country. We played at least 1 or 2 big Division I games a year against people like Mississippi State and, just big colleges, and usually gave them all they wanted. But so I go down there, and sure enough, the point guard, who is a dear friend of mine who lives in Huntsville now, his name's Danny Cervic, had torn his knee up. I think he'd blown his ACL out, and he was going to be out for a time. And I walk in this coach's office, and he's head basketball coach, one of the most respected coaches in the country, and he's like, "I can't believe I'm saying this, but our starting point guard just blew his knee out, and do you want to come practice and see how this thing goes?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess." And so that led.
Well, your ankle's still big, right?
No. This is back in when school started, when that happened.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
very beginning of the summer,
Gotcha.
Season kind of thing. So now we're in November, so they've been practicing and actually been playing some games. So I go to practice. That works out well. I start playing some for them. I stay on the team for 2 years. I earned a scholarship my senior year.
That's cool.
So that was pretty cool. So then I leave Birmingham Southern and did not know what I wanted to do with my life. I actually got caught cheating on a Spanish test my senior year and had to retake Spanish. That's a whole nother story, but they tried to kick me out of school for that.
God.
And so, proud parents. My parents were super proud of that. So I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to go in the military. And my grandfather was at Pearl Harbor on the day that Pearl Harbor got bombed. He was in the Army, and I knew I had a lot of athletic ability. And I thought, well, let me tell you what happened there too. This is a hilarious story. I'm telling you, real life Forrest Gump. I was dating a girl in Hoover, Alabama, that worked at a tanning salon. Okay. The tanning salon was on the second floor of a little strip center that was 2 stories. And one day I was over there going to pick her up for lunch or something, and all of a sudden this guy that was about my size walks out of a Marine Corps recruiting station, which was below the tanning salon, and he looks at me and he goes, "You ever thought about joining the Marine Corps?" That's all he said to me. And that turned into me going into the delayed entry program. I go to Parris Island the same day that I graduate from Birmingham Southern. I didn't even go walk across the stage. I just took my final exam in Spanish. Actually made a B+ in it the second time I took it. And I go down to MEPS in Montgomery and go into the Marine Corps, go to Parris Island for 13 weeks, and then go to gunslinger anti-terrorism school in Chesapeake, Virginia. Then I, went to School of Infantry before that.
And what year is this? This is in the late 90s?
Yeah, no. This is 95. This is 95.
Okay.
And I get to anti-terrorism school in Chesapeake, and the United States Marine Corps has this thing called FAST Company, Fleet Anti-Terrorist Security Team. They have these all over the country, or all over the world, little teams of anti-terrorism. And the thing is, those guys are positioned different places so that they can be anywhere in the world in 24 hours. Gotcha. Less than 24 hours. But they are hardcore hardcore guys. And I kept telling all the guys we had this running joke during anti-terrorism school that Scott's going to be picked to go to Fleet Anti-Terrorism School. I mean, to that unit.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, real athletic, could run, jump, all that stuff. And I kept telling them I'm not going. I don't want to go, because I could see what all these guys were doing. They were doing like running 4 miles with your gas mask on and all this crazy shit. I didn't want any part of that. So they get us in a school circle and they start telling us where we're all going all over the world. And they get to my name and they're like, Lance Corporal Howell, Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team.
Oh,
and my whole unit just jumps up and starts like, oh, we told you you were going fast company. And some people would have been happy about that and been proud to have been picked, but I was not. I did not want to be a part of that. And it just so happened that there was a kid that got chosen to go to London, England for that duty, and he was married. Well, you're not supposed to take a wife over there. It was a single duty station.
Mm-hmm.
And they let us switch orders. So he went to Fast Company, and I went to London. And so I was there for 18 months. I was actually only supposed to be there for 12 months. My commanding officer gets into a drunken argument with the British Royal Marines commandant guy that's like over the British Royal Marines boot camp, who said that we did not have anybody in our unit that could go through British Royal Marine boot camp. And he said that y'all have lost your damn mind. I got some people. I got guys that could go through that. And so they get in this pissing contest. They send a kid that was like all-state wrestler in Iowa down to this place, Limstom, I think is the name of it, where the boot camp's at. He comes back in like 2 weeks. He tore his ankle up. Well, guess who was second in line to go down there to have to go through British Royal Marine boot camp? You're looking at him. Yeah. So I go down there and actually graduate from All Arms Commando course, which is a abridged version of the British Royal Marine boot camp. It's like 13 weeks. And so I got some notoriety about that from the United States Marine Corps, because it was kind of a big deal. There's only been a handful of people ever do that, where they graduate from both Paris Island and British Royal Marine boot camp. And then finished out my time in the Marine Corps with 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines Weapons Company. It was an infantry unit. And then one day you wake up in the Marine Corps, Jason, and it's over. It's just over. And there's a tradition in the Marine Corps where when you're driving off base for the last time, you take your boots and you tie tie your boots together and you throw them over the power line and you go home. And that's pretty much it. It's a very bizarre feeling to have done something 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 365 days a year for 4 years, and then one day it's just over.
I bet you that is unique.
It is a very strange feeling.
I bet you that is.
Drove
Going
back
100 miles an hour. Huh?
Yeah, drove back to Alabama. Took me a day and a half to get back to Alabama. I drove all night to get back home and started my next life, really.
Mm-hmm.
Bounced around in different industries, wasn't happy, didn't enjoy anything I did, and then just kind of fell into the insurance business like everybody else does. You know how
nationwide, right?
Nationwide insurance. I sure did. And I was in a sales program with them for almost 3 years. And I became institutionalized because having been on a sales program for that long and having numbers to hit, when all that was over, I had become institutionalized into, I got to just sell insurance, sell insurance, sell insurance, sell insurance. So I just kept selling insurance, and then here we are today, pretty much. I mean, that's kind of how that happened.
So you're with iProtect now, but now you are an independent, and a lot of us listeners know that. And so when did you meet the wife?
This is my second marriage. I was married. I got married in 2001, about 3 days before 9/11 happened. I was actually on my honeymoon in the Grand Caymans, and went downstairs to eat breakfast, and they were having, ironically enough, a United Nations meeting at the hotel where we were staying.
Oh, wow.
And all these people from the United Nations were gathered around televisions, and I was at the damn food buffet getting my scrambled eggs and waffles. And I walk over because you could tell there was like gasps of like, you know, and I walk over and I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, a plane just hit the World Trade Center. And, you know, like everybody else, I think for the first second or two, it didn't register like how bad it was.
What is it, a Cessna? Little Cessna?
Right, yeah, a little Cessna plane. Yeah, right, yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that all happened then. But, you know, we were married for give or take 15 years. And I'll be completely honest with you. I've mentioned this before. I think me starting my agency with Nationwide in 2010, July 3rd of 2010, and having to work weekends and having to put in the amount of work that I had to put in, I 1,000% know that I think that was a major factor in us not working out. I think we both just kind of fell out of love and kind of went, you know, past each other in the hall, and I'm gone all the time working, and she's gone all the time working, and it just didn't work out. But I'm very happy now. I met my wife in 2017 and been married for 2 years now. And
gorgeous woman.
Yeah, well, thank you.
And she has to put up with your shit. I say that about me. Any woman that's willing to put up with me is one of the most beautiful women in the world.
Right.
But so now we have iProtect and we have insurance and stuff. Something I want to know though, how did you and Bradley meet?
Oh yeah, well that was another story. So we met on social media. He says Snapchat, I say Instagram, don't know which. I liked his content. He was starting to put out a little bit of content back then. Now, remember, back in that time, I was still married to my first wife, and we were taking a vacation down to Orange Beach, Alabama. Probably the first vacation I'd had in 5 years, actually.
Beautiful place.
And I said, hey, I called him. Because I'd called him on the phone, and we'd talked briefly one time. But at that time, I was doing kind of a podcast on Facebook called Ask the Insurance Guy Online. And I was interviewing different people, local celebrities and things like that on Facebook. And I called Bradley. I said, hey, I want to come down to your office and interview you. And he said, come on. So I went down there. We sat there and talked for about an hour about social media. And as soon as I turned the video off, I looked at him and I said, dude, we need to start a podcast. And that's kind of how that started. And since that time, Bradley has become one of my best friends. We talk once or twice a week. I have noticed since the podcast started, and he and I are now both independent agents, and we're both running our own shops, and he's no longer an employee agent. Our workload and our time together seems to get shorter and shorter. We talk once a week, and it literally sometimes it's for like a minute and a half where he'll just call me and say, hey, man, what's going on? Or I'll do the same thing. But we are both probably busier than we've ever been. And it's harder now, too, because I don't get to go down to Mobile for 2 or 3 days at a time and do podcasts. We were doing sometimes 15 to 17 podcasts over a 3-day period down in Mobile.
Yeah, you would batch them, hardcore batch. You guys aren't batching them anymore?
We're not, but that's here lately. That's kind of been a little bit of a problem because he's busy. He's got his marketing company that he's doing some stuff with and some other things he's got going on. Bradley's busier than I am. He's just got more balls juggled in the air. I'm more of I'm going to run this insurance agency. We're going to be successful. This is what I do. I'm not looking to get outside the box and go do like some other crazy shit over here. He's more of the entrepreneur spirit, and he might be into this thing and that thing and doing this and going here. And So he's very busy, but he still tries to make time for the podcast, and he's still a big part of it. It's just hard. It's just
Yeah, and he
difficult.
makes time for agents as well. I mean,
Yes,
so many
yes,
times I talk to people and I'm like, hey, man, one person you may want to go talk to regarding this is
right.
Bradley. And they're like, man, I already talked to him. And I'm like, yeah, good, good, good.
I
And
will say this, Jason. Bradley does a much better job than I do of starting relationships with people in the industry and cultivating those relationships, staying in touch with
very
them,
good.
talking to them on the phone,
Yeah,
those kinds of things.
he's very good.
I'm like that horse in Central Park that has blinders on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do what I'm supposed to do.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, would you say would be something if you were listening to, if somebody was listening to this, they're new or whatever, and since going from captive to independent, doesn't necessarily matter, but what is something that you've learned in your business? Maybe today that you didn't know in the past. It's kind of like that one question. If you could go back 10 years and tell yourself something, I only like to hear that because you have such a variety of a background in the beginning that's molded you to who you are. But
Mhm.
10 years later, you're like, shit, I didn't know anything when I started. We all feel that. We all feel that way.
Yeah,
And by the way, I started mine on January 1st of 2010. You
there
said
you
yours
go.
was July 1st of
July
2010.
3rd, July 3rd. Yeah,
July 3rd, yeah. Right before Independence Day. God damn, that's not surprising. Military
yeah.
guy, big American spirit like you. What is one thing, or as many as you want to give, is somebody that's starting out or thinking about starting out and thinking, well, what would you say about some of that?
Mm,
Let me ask you this way, Scott. What would you say that someone would do that has a relationship, maybe like you and your wife did, that would not want to go back down that road that you did? And maybe there was other things outside that, but and you said that that was a driving factor probably
mhm.
behind a lot of things like that. Do you believe in work-life balance, or do you think it's a bunch of shit and you just need to believe in balance in each individual thing? What do you think?
I think that you have to communicate with your spouse
Mm,
and let them know how much time, energy, dedication that starting an insurance agency from scratch or less than scratch is going to take. I think you have to have conversations about the financial part of that. I think that people who don't communicate that effectively, and here's the big one:
mm-hmm.
having a spouse that supports what you're doing. Both and quite frankly, sometimes that has to be financially. I mean,
That's right.
you're starting an insurance agency from scratch, and you got $60 in your checking account,
Gonna be tough.
and your wife doesn't work. That's going to be a problem because you're going to be living in a box underneath a bridge somewhere the first year.
It's true.
So there's so many factors that go into that, but I think communication is key, and I think I just did a poor job too of understanding. Bottom line, I think I was selfish. I think I was very
Mm,
selfish in
mm.
wanting this agency to work and knowing what it was going to take and not communicating that with her and not taking the time to spend time with my family like my son was so young that he wouldn't remember that today, but I remember a lot of weekends I worked on Saturdays all day, that kind of stuff,
Mm.
and not taking time to go on date nights and
There you
making
go.
sure that she understood that, I still loved her and then that, and being romantic and those types of things. Those are probably lessons that if I could tell anybody what not to do, which I can tell them a lot of that, is, man, you gotta communicate with your spouse and let them know, hey, this is about to be a tough 5 years of sledding right here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you've got a trust fund from your uncle for $12 million, and or whatever the case may be, maybe you saved $300,000 or $400,000
Yep.
from a previous job or something like that. Maybe it doesn't have to be that bad. But I was not in that situation. I was the $60 in my checking account guy.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I think that is a very, very common story right there, is the $60 and the checking account. And you talk about that. I love that, being romantic early on. I mean, you sometimes You know, it says in the Bible, and I'm not getting biblical here, but it says in the Bible that you can't have two masters. You're going to love one more than you do the other. And
Right.
I think that that's sometimes what happens to people like you and I who have passion, Scott, because we have
Mhm.
passion about this business. Like I have a love. This is my baby. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I have to remember though that without that support, there is none of that. I heard Grant Botma say the other day that he doesn't believe in work-life balance, and I think this is a new thought because
Mhm.
you know, anytime as humans we start saying work-life balance or we say something consistently, someone's got to come out and say something differently. But I have to agree with what he says in that. I believe there's a good work-life balance, balancing between the two as far as time. But then I believe there's a good balance inside of the family time, which means putting away the business. One of the biggest problems with mine. My wife had to tell me, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years ago, she said, Jason, I love talking to you, but sometimes the reason why I don't want to talk to you is because we're always talking about your agency or our agency or the podcast or something like that. And that has to make you aware. You know what I mean?
Let, let,
It,
let me say this,
come
okay?
on. Mm-hmm.
And I want everybody that's listening to this to hear what I'm about to say. I have gone completely the other way with this. And what I mean by that is I've been in this business now for 12 years. And my North Star now, okay, my North Star is I want to retire or at least semi-retire by age 62.
Okay.
Now, I'm working with Chris Brand, who is
Oh,
great.
phenomenal.
Yeah, right.
Shit.
I've got an agency partner, business partner that's been with me for 10 years that I'm bringing in as an agency owner. I'm going to give him ownership in this business. But through that process, I told Chris, I said, one thing I have never understood about the insurance industry is you take an agency owner who has built this team of people that have helped him build a $10 million, $20 million, $50 million, $100 million agency, whatever it is. And he one day decides he wants to sell and takes the big check and goes home and, Hub International now owns the agency. And I told Chris, I said, I want to set up an ESOP, employee-sponsored ownership program for all of my employees that have stayed with me for long term. Mm-hmm. And Chris said, well, you can't do it until you get to $5 million in revenue. The money just doesn't make sense. You've got administrative costs. You have to have an administrator, blah, 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 blah. So my North Star now is getting to $5 million in annual revenue so that I can create an ESOP so that all of my people who have been with me for 10, 15, 20 years, hopefully one day, will have an opportunity to own part of this agency.
Love it, dude.
And that is my North Star. And one of the things that I feel passionately about is I do not want to be the 75 or 70-year-old agent who we've only got what's the average death rate among men? Isn't it like 83 years old?
Yeah, it's mid-70s. Women are in the 80s.
Why the hell do I want to sit here and be doing the same shit until I'm 72 and then have like 3 years to enjoy my retirement or 5 years? You don't know. Nobody has a crystal ball. I pulled up next to a guy that made it to the Hall of Fame, the Nationwide Hall of Fame. He was like, I was on the President's Conference trip over in Vienna, Austria a couple years ago. And I pull up beside him at a urinal in a bathroom after he's just been inducted into the Hall of Fame for Nationwide. Dude's like 70 years old. There's no telling how much premium his agency had. No telling. Mm-hmm. And I'm over there pissing in the urinal, and I look over at him. He's at the urinal next to me, and I go, why the hell are you still doing this? What in the hell makes you want to get up in the morning and freaking do this shit every day? And his response to me was, well, now it's kind of like an annuity, and I don't really have to do that much. The agency's on cruise control, and it's just like an annuity for me. And I'm thinking, I don't want to be that guy. I've gone the complete opposite direction. I want to get as far as I can take this thing until I'm like 62, which I'm almost 50 now, so that's only like 12 years.
12 years, yeah.
And then either go do something else in the industry in some capacity, or go outside the industry and go do something else with my last chapter of my life, which really that's what that will be, is the fourth quarter, right?
Right.
But I just don't understand these thousands and thousands and thousands of agents that want to stay in the damn insurance industry till they're freaking 75 years old. And I'm like, Jesus.
Scott, I think they're full of shit. I think a lot of them that say that they want to stay in the industry are terrible business people. We know this. And that means that they can't even run their own lives, okay? And I'm not saying I'm like full Warren Buffett over here, but I understand simple concepts. And I think understanding what happens is, and this is I think happens a lot, is our IRA is our agency. The problem with it is you get into your 50s and 60s and your kids get older and shit starts to happen and you start needing money here and there and you start taking loans out and all of a sudden you know it's 60, 65. It's like, shit, I got to continue to work. I think that happens to a lot of people. I also think it's just we make $150,000 to $300,000 a year. It's easy to just get lost in the fact that this will always be that way. I really, truly do. I attribute a lot of it to just bad business people. And a lot of the agents that I know that stayed in this long usually got some kind of financial issues. You know what I mean? Now, I do believe there are those people. I was talking with Erin Neal on a podcast, and like she told me, she's like, Jason, it's just weird. She's like, I'll probably die at the desk. Now, I don't understand why they think that way, but they do.
Let me stop you right there. You're absolutely right. I think there is, if you had a pie chart, there is a group of agents that may be in the situation that you just described. I also think there is a large majority of agents who, being their local insurance guy or girl, turns into their identity as who they are as a person.
Very true.
And it's almost like the athlete that wants to hang on to pro sports even though they're beyond their prime, and it's just who they are as a person, and they don't know. There's this fear of, what if I retire, I'm no longer the insurance guy or girl. And so they stay in it because it's who they are and it's what they know. And they're like, well, I don't want to go home and sit with my wife every day. That would suck. So that instead they just want to keep going, keep staying with the agency until they die of a heart attack one day.
Yeah, I'm going to put that into my notes here because I did a podcast back on this actually. It was I took them down into three types of people. Man, this was like 2-3 years ago. And I said there's those who are in the industry, they're going to die in the industry, they're fine with that. There's those who are in the industry, but that's not their passion. Their passion is something else, but this allows them to feed that passion. Billy Williams tells me either your job should be your passion or your job should feed your passion.
Right.
And then the third are, I'm just in here because I'm an entrepreneur and I realize that I can make some serious money, build something up in 20 years. And I'm done at 50, 55, and I'm going to go get a boat and I'm going to become a professional fisherman, right? I mean, there's those type of people. And I don't think either one of those is wrong. No. I just think it's totally there, and it's all about who that person is. Your identity thing, though, is so right. It's who they become, especially in small town America.
I know a $100 million agent that I saw on Facebook last week has just opened up another office in South Alabama. He's bumping 70 years old, and I'm sitting there looking at him in front of this another agency that he now owns, that he's running, that he's got 2 or 3 kids working in, and I'm thinking, what in the hell are you doing? Why? We're
not living forever.
Do you need more money? Because I know about how much you got, and it's more than you could probably ever spend. So to me, it just doesn't make sense. But hey, man, to each their own. If that's what you want to do. If that's what
I'm with you, man. I'm selfish. I mean, now if I knew I had 2 or 3 of these lives, let's take this baby all the way to the end. See what we can do.
Let's run it, baby. Let's run it.
But no, I'm guaranteeing you, you don't.
No,
So anyway,
you don't. And I just feel very strongly that because I've treated my body like Six Flags over Georgia, and I'm sitting here dipping while I'm talking to you on this podcast right now. There's no way there's no possible way I make it past 75. So let's say I semi-retire at 62. Let's run the numbers on that. So 75. Let's say God's grace, I make it to 75. That'll be luck.
Okay.
75 minus 62. If I I'll have about 13 years left.
Yeah.
13 years.
13.
You think I want to be fucking fighting with
$17 rate increase?
The $17. Why is why didn't this cover my deductible bullshit when I got 13 years left on the earth? Are you freaking kidding me? Have you lost your damn mind?
You're right. Hey, what's something that you've heard that customers told you that you're just like, what the hell are these people thinking? So I wanted to give you a second just to think about that. Loyal listeners, inside we have a group. We have a Facebook, not group, it's a chat message thing. And it's called Podcasters Unite. And it's just all of us podcasters. And I just started it actually for us to share podcasting tips and stuff. And we never share podcasting. Never. We just tell stories. And about 2 or 3 times a week, you get videos from Scott. You never know what they're going to be, especially after the Capitol resurrection or insurrection.
Sure.
It was a great one. But the other thing is we talked lately about creating a podcast of just things that people say, like the questions we get and stuff like that. And I think it would be great. And loyal listeners, if you think this would be a great idea, reach out to Jason at agency-intelligence.com. Let me know about it. But Scott, any funny things as we wrap this up? Any funny things you heard people say to you?
This morning, this isn't funny, but this morning I am dead ass asleep at 4:40. This is 4:45 this morning. I get a call from this number. I'm sorry, 4:55. Desmo McClendon, 256-660-9082. I have no idea who that person is, but my phone starts ringing, and I kind of half woke up, and I remember telling my wife this morning. I said, "This sumbitch's house better just to burn down to the ground if I answer this phone call." So I answer the phone at 4:55 a.m. and there's nobody on the other end. I don't know if it was somebody pulling a prank on me or what, but dude, it's every week you hear something crazy from people. And a lot of times in the insurance industry, what you get is what I like to refer to as displaced anger. And what displaced anger is the body. Here lately, it's been body shops because of our supply problem that we have right now in the U.S. with parts being able to be delivered on time, and so the carrier will only give them a rental car for 30 days, and then they'll extend it for 8 days, and then the carrier's like, "Look, dude, we've done all we can do. We can't do no more." And they call me, and they're pissed off because they're like, "Travelers, they should have extended my rental car for 45 days. Hold on, buddy. How about the body shop should have fixed your damn car in 38 days? How about that? It's displaced anger.
Anger. I like that.
They project it on the insurance agency and myself or the carrier because and then the conversation, they never say anything about the damn body shop having their car for 40 freaking days.
They don't. You're right.
So I get a lot of that. I get a lot of, the independent adjuster's wife chewed his ass that morning, and maybe they haven't had sex in a few days, and the kids just got to, come down with a cold, and he goes over to my client's house at 10 a.m., and he's pissed off because his wife just chewed his ass before he left the house. And so he gets out of the truck, and he's a damn asshole to my client. And so now they're calling me and going, "I don't know who you sent out." Like I'm sending adjusters out, I'm the guy. I've just got adjusters on speed dial that I'm sending to people's houses, and he's pissed off because this adjuster's come out and he's been an asshole, and now I'm having to call the adjuster, and just all I want to say is like, dude, can you not just think about you're kind of in sales like we are, and try to put on the smiley face. I know your wife chewed your ass this morning. I know you've had a bad day. I have friends. I have some of my dearest friends in the world who are insurance adjusters. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, when they come out there, don't start chewing that adjuster's ass, because he can either be your best friend,
damn right,
or your worst enemy.
That's right.
And he holds all the power.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets out of the truck and you start telling him what he's going to do, get ready. Or you can go the other way. If it were me, I would have Toll House chocolate chip cookies and some milk for him when he got out of the truck and be like, is there anything you need? Can I get you anything else? But a lot of that kind of stuff that we get. And then there's always the 5 to 10 clients that every agent needs to fire at the end of the year. And what I try to do is I call these people towards the Christmas holiday and let them know that iProtect Insurance is no longer selling insurance, that we're in the shutter business now. We're going to start making awnings for businesses, and they need to go get their insurance somewhere else, because I would literally rather die of anal cancer than to have to deal with you one more freaking second, you asshole. That's the kind of stuff Scott does. Because there are some people out there that if I handed them a freaking piece of gold bullion, they would start in on why they have to pay taxes on that. There's always every year the 5 to 10 clients that your agent, one of your agent producers, accidentally hires. Let's just call it what it is. Hires into your agency that you're now on the hook for, who is a complete jerk or calls up. We had one call up 2 weeks ago and start MFing. Told probably one of the sweetest little girls in the entire world who answers our phones that she was a motherfucker. Now, ask me how long I'm gonna put up with that.
Yeah. I hate when that happens, but I got to tell you, I love when it happens, only because of the aftermath. Because when I hear that happens, I'm in my zone. Okay, how do I get this person on the phone? Or, hey, put that person on hold. Jason's going to talk to him.
Yep.
I got to tell you, I like that a lot. Wrapping this up, leaders are readers and readers are leaders. You're a leader. I know you got to be a reader. What are you reading right now, buddy?
Let's see. I'm not a reader per se, but I am.
Okay.
Let me explain. So I constantly read. I've always been Tom Cruise in Cocktail. I always think that this next self-help book that I read is going to be the key to my brighter future. So I've read every self-help book out there that is available. I've read everything from Grant Cardone. I've read everything from Lee Dubois, Zig Ziglar. I just read the book Awe, A-W-E. Great book, by the way. But I don't read them. I have a lot of windshield time in my vehicle. I live about 30 to 35 miles from my office. So, if I showed you what my Audible list is, it's pretty heavy. There's probably 150 books in my Audible download.
Scott, you're able to digest a lot of books if you go 20 to 30 minutes each way.
Correct.
I said this before on another podcast, and this is only suiting talking to you about this. I have a book right now that's sitting on the back of my toilet. I'm one of those guys that takes the long ones, right?
Right.
About 10, 15 minutes every day of reading every day. I can get through a book in a month to a month and a half.
Right.
Now, I'm already reading. I'm an Audible guy, right? But I always have this book on the back, and that's so I've got 2 books going at once, and it's amazing how that happens. So a lot of the producers that we've bought Audible for them, and I've encouraged them, hey, you don't have to be a geek like me and listen 20 in and 20 out, but at least 20 a day. And they've started to do that, and it's amazing. Like one of the producers told me the other day, I started that in February, and I actually just got through my 2nd book. He hasn't read 2 books in 1 year in his entire life outside of high school, right? So I thought that was pretty interesting. Audible's awesome, dude.
If you're listening to this right now and you want to write triple the amount of insurance that you wrote last year. If you want to write triple that amount this year, go to Audible and download 10X by Grant Cardone. And I have never met anybody in sales that ever listened to that book on audible.com and did not triple their sales that year.
You know, I'm going to take you up on that, Scott, because I can't stand the son of a bitch. I really can't. I just think he's a goddamn crook. I think he started in the right area, and I think he's a hell of a salesperson.
And that's when all this was written. I will agree with you that it seems like over the past couple of years, Grant has turned into more of that, what I call used car salesman guy that you see, right. And he's always got a cigar in his mouth and he's getting on an airplane and all this other stuff. But that stuff he wrote back 2010, 2013, Sell or Be Sold, 10X by Grant Cardone, man, that stuff is gold. All right, I'm going to get that. There's some great stuff in those books.
I'm going to get that. How about Greenlight? You read that, Scott?
Have not.
Go listen to that. That's totally you, the way he tells stories. It's an unbelievable book. It's one of the best I've read in a long time. It really, truly is. So then the last one, as we talked about her before, your boo. You're probably watching Hulu, spending time on Amazon Prime, or getting kicks on Netflix. What are you and the woman watching at night? You know, when you're trying to camp out and you're trying to just veg out. What are you guys watching out there?
We usually watch television while we eat dinner. It's the only time I ever have to watch any television. I purposefully do not watch the news. I just don't, I don't believe that any one person or any news type scenario is going to help me have a better insurance agency over here. I just don't think that's true. We are eagerly anticipating, I believe it's June the 20th when Yellowstone starts back on its fifth season. I'll tell you another thing that we watch a lot of is Naked and Afraid.
You like that?
Yeah, we do. We enjoy watching that. So
Did you hear that recent one? I don't know if it happened and it hasn't been filmed yet or it showed, but the dude fell and cut himself.
Yeah, we actually watched that last night. Yeah, he tore his scrotum. Had to have 14 stitches in his scrotum, but stayed on the show and
kept going, dude. And they thought that he was going to get infected, but I guess weeks afterwards somehow he didn't. So
that dude's like the godfather of Naked and Afraid. He's made every challenge that they've put him through. He's done. So we enjoy watching that. But we are eagerly awaiting Yellowstone season 5 that's about to come on.
So, do you think with Naked and Afraid, do you think there's any risky business going on the side when the cameras are off?
I think there have been a couple of people I've watched on there, and I thought they probably hooked up either after the show or during the show. Now, I think when they're actually on there and they've got 7,000 mosquito bites and they haven't eaten in 5 days, that's probably the last thing they're thinking about is sex because they are so freaking miserable.
Well, they haven't got you and I out there, Scott, so we would have to.
No, I'm gonna pass on that. I did enough sleeping in the desert when I was in the Marine Corps. I don't need any more of that. But
I bet you did.
But I just I think you're so miserable when you're out there that it's hard. Maybe the first day you're as a guy, you see a lot of guys that are like, "Whoa, man, she's cute. Yeah. Maybe I can hook this up." And then by day 3, they're like, "I haven't eaten in 3 days and I'm about to die." So,
Scott, let me ask you another one. Let's talk about this. Let me just ask you the question. So, space. You think anybody's had sex in space?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure there's
so?
Yeah, I'm sure there's
somebody. Had to be, right?
I mean, International Space Station. I mean, I don't know what the percentage male female is up there, but you got to know somebody's had it.
Got it. And even if you're not,
and do you get a pass? Do you get a pass if you have it up there?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, like, even if it's like, hey, I'm not even romantically attracted to you, but we got to be the first, right? I
Right,
mean,
right.
you gotta do it. So, anyways, that's funny. Never talked about that on a podcast. So, how do you guys like that? Tell us what you guys think. Yes or no, Jason at agency-intelligence.com. This has been a long one. The long ones are always the best, and I greatly appreciate you coming on, Scott. I really do. Anything you want to say to wrap it up, buddy?
No, guys, we appreciate you so much. Thank you for listening to this for an hour and whatever minutes that we've been on today. You know, I just appreciate you, Jason, and all you do for our industry.
Thank you.
And you are, like I said, OG. So anything I can ever do for you, just let me know.
All right, fantastic. I will. I greatly appreciate you, man, and all you guys do, and especially Bradley. Good connection out there. He does so much for the industry, and I'm pretty sure you're doing just as much for your team of, what'd you say, you have 5 agency offices.
Yep.
So, I mean, hey, good for you. Scott, thank you very much. To all you loyal listeners out there, this has been Agency Intelligence, where I give you real agents inside real agencies, giving you the real agency intelligence. And I do what I do because I do it for you. This is Cass. He's Hal. We're out.